Welcome back, and I am delighted to have Mr. John Kabateck join us today again. Mr. John, thank you for your time. It's early in the morning, right before your sessions. How are you today?
Doing great, Victor. Thank you. Thanks for having me back. Always good to see you.
Likewise, likewise. Well, today you are in our online studio because I know you are so busy with the legislator. Um, I'm thankful that you've been sharing with me via email and the phone call about what's happening. But could you please share with our audience, with the businesses, what is happening with the legislator and what we small businesses have to be expecting?
Yeah. Well, at this time of this recording, I think it's a little quieter, not too much quieter, because the Democratic convention is happening in Chicago. So there's a number of legislators and others who are traveled to that. But it's still a busy time of year. You know, we still have about 10 days until the legislature formally adjourns for the rest of 2024 session, and then heads into the summer, or the end of session recess. So a lot of things have been accomplished. There's still some things that need to get done, and most importantly, just wanting to make sure that the best outcomes are there for small businesses and, frankly, all families.
Right, right. What changes do you see, do you foresee when you analyze what's happening? What should we expect?
Well, I think it's an election year. So I think Democrats, Republicans, independents, people on all sides of the aisle are pretty, prone to walk on eggshells but when it comes closer to the election. I don't think you're going to find a lot of policymakers making big dramatic sweeps of decisions that could impact people in their communities. I don't think, hopefully, I knock on wood when I say this, Victor, hopefully we will not see any real tax increases. I think taxes are not resonating well with voters on any side of the aisle. Their pocketbooks are strained. So I think what we're probably going to see on the good side is probably very few, if any, tax increase proposals going to the governor. And then I think hopefully what we will also see is a continued effort to finally address retail theft. We've had these property crimes in California that are through the roof, affecting all of us, right? You must know someone. I know some people. Or unfortunately, people have been victimized in our own backyard. So it looks like the Democrats and Republicans while there's some division on this stuff, they're at least trying to move forward to get some things done on retail theft. So that's our hope.
Right, right, absolutely. My next question, I think I could divide into two parts. During these extremely busy times with the legislator and all this work, what is Kabateck Strategies busy with, and what is NFIB busy with?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, it's great to be sharing a little bit about each. Very, very fortunate to have the opportunity for the past 9 years now to have Kabateck Strategies. We launched this firm and with the one mantra and with one main goal. And our mantra is to give a voice to those less heard. I think I feel, Victor, that, whether it's a small business owner, a working family, a senior, a veteran, they just really don't have that voice, or they don't feel they have that voice in the Capitol, in the nation's capital, city council. I think one of the things that we're looking at this year with Kabateck Strategies, we formed it to really make sure we could build the right coalitions, get the right people gathered in the media, in the council rooms, and in just amongst our public policymakers to make sure the real people are heard. So this year we're engaged in a number of different things. I think we're very actively involved in some ballot measures. I talked about retail theft. There's Proposition 36, which will finally bring some fixes to this terrible fallout from Prop 47 that voters approved about 10 years ago, which has made it easier for criminals, frankly, Victor, to thumb their nose at the law. And then we're also working on a measure to oppose Proposition 33, which is rent control. This will be the third time this one individual has advanced trying to impose rent control on businesses, on families. And this will be the third time, hopefully, that voters reject it, because they just see that when we're talking about a housing crisis and a housing affordability, trying to put rent control in there, even the governor opposes it. But so we're involved in a couple ballot measures. We're involved in retail theft. We're doing some things on tech, which is really cool. AI, I know we've had conversations about artificial intelligence and this kind of stuff. It's really cool, but unfortunately, policymakers are throwing everything at the wall to try and regulate it. We just want to make sure that AI in a state like California that the governor keeps advancing is, innovative and the leader, that we're not thwarting, that we're not stopping AI opportunities here and the ability to create jobs and create opportunity. So those are a couple of things we're involving with Kabateck Strategies, and exciting stuff, but important stuff, I think, for real voters.
Yeah, absolutely. Since you mentioned the real estate issues, all around America, there are states which are pro-tenants or pro-landlords. California was called to be a pro-tenant, and probably you've heard about many issues which landlords face because of these rules. Is your company dealing with anything towards somehow balancing it up?
Well, when we talk about balance, I think it's important to point out, and we try to explain to people when we hear about this rent control measure in Prop 33, which is just so absurd. California already has the most stringent tenant protection rights in the country, Victor. We actually already make sure that rent can only be, can only go up a particular amount. In 2019, the governor signed legislation that actually requires that rents be capped at 5% under most instances tied to inflation, and as high as 10% based on particular circumstances. But we already in our state provide the most stringent guidelines and rules for tenant protections in any place in the nation. So to really try and impose rent control, what you're basically telling an employer or an owner of a property is you need to pocket the costs of those kinds of maintenance and upgrades to your facility. And that can't happen without fallout. So I think, it's going to be more people out on the street, people shutting the doors of their tenant properties. We just think that we already have the most stringent rules in this nation. Why do we need to impose more and more and more on already struggling people and put seniors and put small businesses and families out on the street? It just doesn't make sense.
Right. From a business perspective of a property owner, because if you're a property owner, you are renting it out. It's a small business itself, whether it's a short, midterm, or long term. Do you foresee any changes to help these businesses? Since right now the law and all the regulations are supporting the tenants.
Well, I think that what we also hear from a lot of small business owners at NFIB, my small business members, is that they rely on their property. They rely on those types of properties as their retirement, as a form of income, as opportunities for them to grow their business. So I think this is difficult when you talk to a small business owner, because they do actually, many small business owners are property owners. Now you're putting caps on them and creating very difficult circumstances for them. But many of them rely on that very property, as you may know, as retirement source, as a source of income, as a source of ability to have capital to leverage. So it creates it's economics. The person who proposed this really needs to take economics 101, because at the end of the day, that has to come out of somebody's pocket, or somebody has to suffer. And unfortunately, when you have to upgrade and create maintenance opportunities for a property, and you have to absorb those costs, it's got to come from somewhere. Just like a minimum wage increase, just like you talk about these things that may sound sexy on the outside, but they can be really, really have ill consequences on the inside.
Right, absolutely. Well, you've shared about the Kabateck strategies and your actions. What about NFIB? What is NFIB, yourself as a part of NFIB, doing during these legislator turbulent times, if we call it this way?
Yeah. Well, pretty exciting. I mean, we're with the NFIB, we're the National Federation of Independent Business. So we're actually a California-born organization. That is 1943, a gentleman who owned a small business didn't feel that there was an organization yet that really fought for small businesses. He was a member of the U.S. Chamber, but he said, I need an organization that fights for small business, because small businesses are affected in such a very disproportionate way. So we're now in every single state, and including, of course, California, about 14,000 members here. And, as the state director, we have about 14,000 members that are struggling. They're struggling very, very much right now. But, at the national level, we got a great national team that's fighting in Congress to make sure that small businesses have a voice. When President Trump signed the Jobs Act years ago, it was well intentioned, but one thing that was, first of all, what was not included in there was anything that would have helped small businesses. These PPP loans, remember those PPP loans? A lot of got out there. They all went towards big business, big corporations. NFIB picked up the phone and called the Trump White House and said, "Hey, what about Main Street? What about small businesses?" And both the president and Congress realized that they needed to give small businesses that help. But what was also in the Jobs Act, Victor, was a 20% deduction on pass-through entities, S corporations, C corps, these types of businesses, that really has helped them with this tax cut and Jobs Act from back then. But what it had in there was an expiration date of next year, of 2025. So at the national level, NFIB, and we've been fighting hard for this, is to make sure that they can make that tax cut, that tax cut on pass-through entities for expenses for small businesses, permanent. Because if that doesn't happen, what we will find next year is literally a 20% tax increase on small business owners who really rely on that pass-through deduction. So that's a big thing at the federal level. And like I said, here in California, if there's one deficit we don't have, Victor, I will tell you it's a deficit of challenges small businesses face. And right now, I think what we're still going to be fighting hard for is more fixes to retail theft and property crimes. Small businesses are still hit so hard on that. There is a continued push to raise the minimum wage. Labor unions don't feel that California at $16 an hour is high enough. It's the second highest in the nation. Now they're talking about, get this, $25 an hour, $30 an hour we heard about a week ago. And again, like rent control, that comes with a cost. Sure, it's nice to have a few extra dollars in the pocket, but at what cost? Governor Newsom signed legislation to raise the minimum wage on fast food workers. You may recall this, to $20 an hour. That went into effect April of this year. Right. Since then, just in the past 3 months, we've seen 9,500 layoffs at fast food franchises, an average of price increases of 8%. And if you've walked into your typical fast food restaurant, I know I like mine. I know I love my Taco Bell. Once in a while. We've seen a lot of these places switch to kiosks, right? To robots and kiosks, because they just realized, I can't afford people anymore. But a robot, I don't have to pay the wages and benefit levels that are so high. So I think we're going to be keeping an eye out for more retail theft opportunities to fix that. We're looking to really fend off this continued absurd increase in minimum wage increases. And then I think also on top of that, let's talk about the positives. Let's find opportunities where we can get access to capital and pave the way for small businesses to have more, more growth and opportunity, entrepreneurship. You and I've talked a lot about that.
Right. Continuing this topic, is anything going on related to attraction of investments and making our region, our state more attractive for investment?
Yeah, to Governor Newsom's credit, pun intended, because I'm going to talk about tax credits. It was launched many years ago. In fact, I think it was launched under former Governor Jerry Brown, a program through the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development called California Competes, Cal Competes. And the Cal Competes program has offered already, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in tax benefits, tax credits, opportunities for businesses to come to California, stay in California, and invest in California. So much as we oftentimes will have concerns about some things the governor or the progressive legislature will do on certain fronts, I think this is a real feather in the cap. I think we just want to see more of that. So I think those tax credits and those dollars to help businesses compete here is one thing. But I think first we got to stop the bleeding. We got to stop the harm. No taxes, or fewer taxes, fewer regulations, and fewer frivolous lawsuits. Because those tax credits really are a wash if you're also balancing that out with higher costs on businesses like we've discussed. So it's a combination of both, but the Cal Competes program, I think, is a good step when you're asking about investment, as a great step in the direction of giving businesses and entrepreneurs an opportunity to take their ideas somewhere and grow.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. My last question, it might be a little bit more political related. You've been working in political circles on the top, and I think you're the best specialist to share this thought and ask the question. Um, the elections are coming up soon, and the media, social media, everything is, I think, oversaturated with political messages. And to me, it feels like whenever you scroll your social media or you turn on TV, if you see a certain person, you know what he or she is pushing, whether it's one side or another side. I'm obviously
Right.
not saying any names, but it's just, I feel, and I believe a lot of people would feel the same, your mind just shuts down. You don't absorb this information. And these folks on media, they don't share analytics. They just share pure emotions. This is good, this is bad, this is terrible, all the personality, all emotions. Do you think, as a professional politician, that we probably need some new people in the media to share with the audience actual facts and analytics without saying this is good or bad, without calling any site names? Like, hey, this is a good idea for the country, for the economy. This is a good idea for the legislator. What is your take on it?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that the average voter on the left, on the right, in the middle, they're just sick and tired of the diatribes. I will tell you, frankly, I felt like at both national conventions, we heard a lot of rhetoric and a lot of attacks on both sides, right?
Right.
But what people have been telling me is, I want to hear the substance. Like you said, even the analytics are great, but I just want to hear the 3 or 4 or 5 platforms. What are you going to do for me? What are you going to do to get me out of this economic hole? What are
Right.
you going to do to help my small business grow? What are you going to do to help me with healthcare, with my grandmother who needs help here and we can't afford it? How can we create more accessibility? So those kinds of things, I think. So yes, I would say to answer your question, I think Americans, Californians are yearning for a better, media source, media outlets, and folks who can really give good stories, tell real stories. What you're doing is great because you like to talk about facts, you like to talk about statistics and information, and get to the core of it, and not make it a left or right issue. But I think that is really needed right now, and I think that Americans and voters deserve that. I think they deserve to have, and in real people speak. I think politicians can always get people lost up here, and then you need to come down here, but you got to have some specifics. What does that tax increase mean for a small business? What does this bill on regulations mean for a senior in their home, or a veteran, or a school district, right? We don't hear enough of those things, and I think C-SPAN is probably one of the more politically agnostic, because they really are just reporting the raw data and the interviews and the media. But I think like things like you do and others, there's much needed appetite right now for people to hear the real facts and not get these attacks that kind of talk in circles.
Right, right, absolutely. Well, Mr. John, thank you so much for your time. We'll keep promoting and pushing the name of Kabateck Strategies and NFIB so we can help more businesses grow. And let's connect in 10 days after the legislator tornado is over to see what is that actually that we have right now to deal with.
I look forward to that. I think these next 10 days, we're going to be praying a lot. But I think we're hopefully going to see some good things come out of this. A safer California, one that's more economically sound. At least we hope, and we hold our leaders accountable. And we'll talk in the next 10 days because, right around the bend is election day, and we can talk about that too. And I think there's an opportunity for business owners, families, seniors, veterans, just anybody out there, mom and pops and families, to make their voices heard on election day and make sure we move things forward in the direction that we all deserve.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you so much. You take care.
Thank you.